Hello and welcome to the Next Canon podcast. My name is Danny Ray, as you know, and today I'm very excited. Today we have Trace Turner with us. Say hi, Trace.
Hi.
Hi. Trace uses he, they pronouns, is a multidisciplinary theater generator and collaborator, born and raised in Austin, Texas. He got his degree in directing from Webster Conservatory in St. Louis, and recently moved to Seattle from New York City after the pandemic ended his project there. I'm so sorry about that. Trace is a director, playwright, deviser, adapter, actor, stage manager, photographer, all the things that you want in a multidisciplinary artist. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Trace.
Yeah, like Danny said, I'm from Austin, Texas, originally, born and raised. Ever since then, I've been sort of jumping around to acting, to supporting, to helping build sets, hang lights, direct shows, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on and on. Now I'm in Seattle trying to figure out what's good, you know?
Yeah, and you came like right at the beginning of the pandemic, right?
Yeah, so I moved out of my New York apartment actually at the end of October, because that's when our lease ended. But I had left for a little while and had a sublease and all that. And then I moved out and then drove all my stuff from Texas to Seattle in November.
That's a
And so I've been,
long one.
yeah, it was like 33 hours total driving. It is the longest I've ever taken for a road trip before.
Oh my gosh. My brother's done the Washington to California one a few times, but he does not recommend. He does not recommend.
Yeah, this country's big. Did you know?
I did know. Sometimes you forget, and then you're like, oh wait, in other parts of the world, this would be countries and countries apart.
Yeah, countries plural. This place is very large.
Super large. So what was the beginning of the pandemic like for you?
So like you said, I was in New York. I was working on, you can kind of see it back there, this little poster. It was for a solo show called Half-Life, written by Clara Altron, and I was the assistant director and stage manager for the show. And it was in the Clark Studio Black Box at the Lincoln Center campus.
Oh my gosh.
And that Thursday, actually today, March 12th, we had loaded in and were teching. And then around our lunch break, we got word from the Broadway League that they were shutting down due to COVID-19. And so we kind of were sitting there for a minute of like, what do we do? What's the next move? Should we pack up now? Because we had a recording crew coming in to watch our preview, our open preview to film the show. And so we decided to secretly finish our tech, record the show, take the pictures, and then get out as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. Our opening was supposed to be the next day and is still yet to open, but hopefully someday.
Hopefully someday. Like I wonder what happens with all the jobs that everyone lost. Like mine's not coming back. Those kids graduated. Like I was at a elementary school, and those kids are now in their like middle high school situation, wherever they were. But like, so some people had these such cool gigs and shows that I'm like, I hope those don't disappear and adapt even. Like I kind of want to see what was gonna happen. But
totally. And yeah, how do you plan to bring those back when so much time has elapsed? Because I remember we had like a chain going for like maybe a month afterwards of like, okay, so here's how we need to like keep audience engagement, and like it's only going to be like 2 to 8 weeks, like we'll bounce back. And now it's been a year, and so where do we go from now? Because so much has changed.
Entirely. I was just talking to someone the other day about how similar to where we were last year at this time, we don't know what this year is going to bring. It could bring everyone being vaccinated solves all of our problems in the world and everything is hunky-dory and we get to be open again. Or it could not bring that. We could still be in similar situations in August, where we're like, please don't leave your home, even if you're vaccinated. Totally. Or like we have, we're still in that space of not knowing what comes next.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I have a summer contract that got canceled that is happening again this summer. I'm doing Sound of Music at Grand Street Theater in Helena. And all of our email and planning right now is sort of like, well, here's what we're thinking, and here's like us planning and the guys that everything's going to be okay, knowing the whole time that anything could change any day. And if 2020 has taught me anything, it's just to not have expectations anymore.
just walk blindly into the future.
Yep, one day at a time.
Yeah, seriously, that is also what it's taught me. It's like, if you told me this time last year I'd be doing what I'm doing right now, I'd be like, you are losing it. Are you okay? And then the answer would be no. Like,
no,
you know,
we're not.
No, we're not really that okay. Our old selves would be like, oh no, if they knew, if they only knew.
If they
Sometimes I
only
think about
knew.
that. It's wild.
Oh yeah, especially with like Time Hop showing me like everything that's been happening in a year ago. I'm like, if only
everyone's
you knew.
posting all their photos of like, well, this was my last time doing this, or this is my last time doing that. And then you have this dichotomy of like, I have a few people in my Instagram who, I live on the other side of Washington in Spokane, where it's a little bit less following of the protocol. And if you walk over into Idaho, there's like no protocol. So I have people who live here who then go like line dancing, and they look like cowboys. And I'm like, what are you? Are you from the South? But they're like, no, I'm from Idaho. And I'm like, okay, that accent, weird. But they're like line dancing and like going dancing with their friends, and like, no, not a mask in sight, not a singular mask in sight.
Oh yeah, being from Texas with the governor like lifting all of those, and just seeing like people that I know posting on their stories and everything, like I'm not seeing any masks and just so many crowds, and it's so hard to like wrap your head around if it's even real.
Seriously. And I don't know when I'll walk out in public without a mask again. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
Who's to say?
Yeah, I was talking with my roommates of like the idea of like even going to like a concert again and standing like in a crowd and hearing music played in front of you. Like, it's so unfathomable to me right now what that experience is like, because I've kind of forgotten.
Totally. And if you think of instruments like a trumpet, that is spewing your coronavirus everywhere. Like, that is like a woodwind instrument. It is going everywhere. That trumpeter is just like, whoa, and you're like, oh my God. Get
like
your
a
roadies
t-shirt
away
cannon
from
for
me.
COVID.
Seriously. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, oh no. Oh no.
That's not great.
It's not, but like I want people to play the trumpet, you know, like I want them to have that, and I want to hear it. Like, they're great. So to sort of get away from that like COVID topic and more into like the theater realm topic, to you, what does the word canon mean?
This is a really good question, and I have to say that I did do the stereotypical looking up on Merriam-Webster. And to me, when I think canon in the theatrical context, I think of things that live within our cultural context, like to this day, that if you say it, you sort of know what that is already. Sound of Music, I think, is a really good example of it having so many parts where people know exactly what it is, even if they haven't seen the show before.
Totally.
For instance, like doe a deer. Everyone knows what that means. But then I scrolled down through some of the other definitions, and I remembered that, or I read that canon can also mean like songs that repeat within themselves and are meant to like be rhythmic and repetitive.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking about this whole idea of like echoes in our theatrical canon and what we're choosing to sort of echo back. And in that way, I think that the canon can be something that's so big and has the ability to change whenever we want it to, whenever we choose to decide what we want to echo back.
Right. That also sort of makes me think about like there's certain bigger theaters and schools that will do the same show like every 5 years, as if people didn't remember because those specific kids weren't at the school or something like that. Totally. It happens all the time with things like Singing in the Rain. People do it like every 5 years.
The total crowd pleaser shows.
That echo that you're talking about that comes back and repeats and stuff like that. Crowd pleasers like Christmas Carol or something like that, like every year.
Yeah, whatever the Christmas show is for that theater. But it's so interesting, like having freelanced a bit and jumped from theater to theater, it's always intriguing to me what shows people who work at that theater still talk about, or they're
Mm.
like, oh, the 80s version of Pippin that we did, or like, and then the one that we did in like 2001. And it's just so interesting to me, like what we hold on to and what we want to
Yeah,
keep seeing more of.
for sure. An 80s Pippin. Oh my God. Sorry.
I know.
That really got me. It's like, wait, what? I mean, I think it's always funny when people put things in different eras, which is a good instinct to like switch
Mhm.
things up. Sometimes it's not well executed, but that cannot be helped.
Right.
But sometimes it is,
Mhm.
it's a really fun instinct. So what to you is a show that is like not anymore? Please, dear God, do not give it to us. But it's not like reminder to everyone listening. This is not like a we're getting rid of it forever. We hate the show. It's more like a please don't do it for the next 25 to 30 years. We can do other things. So you have a show that's got to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, this is like my big hard question, because it's so hard to just like take a show out. But in thinking about what I like don't need to see again and again, my mind kept coming back to like kitchen sink dramas of like the 50s and 60s, sort of like the Miller and like Mammoth in the 80s, like that hardcore, like gritty straight man yelling realism. I'm not super interested anymore. And I think we're living in a cultural context that allows us to delve more into like the imaginative side of the arts and that sort of magical realism that is way more exciting,
Yeah,
to me at least.
totally. Do you have a specific show that pops into your head where you're just like, ugh?
There was, I remember seeing a production in St. Louis of All My Sons, that Miller play.
Mm.
And I, unfortunately, I have to say I left at intermission because I just couldn't really do it. I wasn't engaged and
Yeah,
I wasn't 65 or older. So there was nothing for me to really cling to.
yeah. It's like, what are you teaching me? Like, what are you trying to share with me? I don't.
Yeah, what am I learning that I didn't already sort of get a context for through film or history class?
Right. Definitely. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's a really good point. There have been a lot of people being like, white men yelling, not into it. Not a lot of them. Just like I
not
think one
into it
other person
anymore.
was like, I don't want people yelling anymore. It's just like that's relatable.
Yeah, or even like it stretches into like the land of Neil LaBute, which
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
also no longer interested in, just like the fighting and the misogyny and like showing the flaws of white cis straight men, because truthfully we all know it. We don't need
Yeah.
to see it on stage anymore.
Right. It's like there's no new information for me here.
Right, exactly. It's like, okay, I can check out because I already know what's gonna happen
Yeah,
because
let me
I've
pay
seen
you
it played out
$20.
before.
Let me pay
Yeah.
you $20 to watch this thing I'm very used to. That's the
Hmm.
thing that's interesting too. It's like we want to see new things. I feel like I want to see new things, but people are there's a lot of a comfort zone to like going to the theater for a lot of people.
Totally.
When some of the best theater I've ever seen was like entirely uncomfortable, but like not in a like offensive way. You know what I
Totally.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a way, and I don't know how much this dives into like the demographics of people who go to the theater, which is generally 65 and older, but this idea of like playing safe to make them comfortable. I
Mm-hmm.
don't go to the theater to feel comfortable. I want to go to be challenged and amazed and surprised and left wondering and wanting more. When I
Yeah.
see something that is so uh I want to say predictable in its like structure and storytelling, then I'm sort of like checking out and leaning back and drifting off away from the script, which is I don't think what the playwright originally intended at all for my reaction to be.
Right. And it's like,
Yeah.
what triggers that? It's like, is it because we've seen it a million times, or is it because there's way more interesting stories to tell?
Yeah, and for me and in my practice I try to work this in of like finding moments of magic or illusion within shows that can really like take people a second to be like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
what comes to mind is like in Hadestown when they make the flower just sort of appear in their hand. Like it's so small, but it's like so tantalizing in a way.
Yeah, definitely. It's like little things about theater that you don't expect, that you're like, where's the intrigue? Where's the like the like little beautiful spark or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, the
Yeah.
little bit of magic that's a bit beyond what we see every day. Because that's
Right.
why I want to be in a theater, to be like transported and to go
Right.
somewhere else and learn and feel.
Definitely. Like, why would you even have shows that are like outrageous, like Mr. Burns or something, in
Exactly.
existence? You know, like that is a trippy show. Like, that's like, it's
Hmm.
not that that's what everyone wants, but like that type of like, there's always a twist, there's always a turn, like everything's going wild. Or even like Ride the
Totally.
Cyclone, if you saw that.
I heard about it. I never saw it.
It's wild. Everyone has a lot of different feelings about it. The
Hmm.
music is fun. It's a little dated, like you can tell it was written in the early 2000s. It's very funny,
Hmm.
which is just comedy to me. I think I saw it 2 or 3 times just for fun,
Amazing.
from different angles. I like to go to shows and see them from different angles if I can, just
Hmm.
because like you miss things. The first time I ever saw Wicked when I was like 13 or 14, we sat like down near the orchestra, but like probably 15 rows back in this giant theater in Spokane, and like down into the left of the audience. And
Uh-huh.
I missed the like opening, not the opening shot, but like the final shot where they're like in the middle of the archway because it's so far upstage, but there's so much coming
Hmm.
in, and I missed it. I knew it was there. Like in my mind, I was like, they're doing a thing right now. And I missed it.
Hmm.
So I like to see things from
Something.
different spots.
Yeah, me too. And something I'm gonna admit and might be a little bit illegal, but sometimes if I notice that there's other seats in the first act that are empty, at intermission I'll switch and like go sit somewhere else.
I think that's genius, actually. I've never thought about
It's
it, but
really
like,
fun.
yeah, you're like, I'm doing something dangerous.
It's
This
a
is
little
like,
bit bad, you know?
this is, I'm mixing it up, you know, I'm splashing, I'm making
Hmm.
make a little splash in my life.
Yeah, I remember seeing a production of Glass Menagerie on Broadway with Zachary Quinto and
Wow.
Cherry Jones, and we got like rush seats, so we were like in the weird like box on the second level. Which at first you're like, ooh, like I'm in a box, I'm so fancy. But then you realize like I can only see like half the stage.
Yeah.
So
Was it
then
one
we
of the
just,
side ones that like come out?
mhm.
Yeah, you can't see like anything from those.
Yeah, nothing at all. So then we noticed that like some like mid balcony seats were empty. So at intermission we switched so then we could see the entire stage. And thank God we did because they spent their whole rest of the play on the left side of the stage. So
Oh
it was like,
my
okay, great.
gosh.
Glad we
Great.
moved.
Glad that's super smart. I've never even thought about that. New tricks, hack,
New tricks from me to you.
theater hack. Thank you so much. Um yeah, I think when I was thinking about the uncomfortability thing, a show that popped into my mind was done at On the Boards. I can't remember what it was called. On the Boards is in Seattle.
Hmm.
It was this Russian theater troupe who I don't know if you heard anything about this, but they were doing a lot of different pieces that were like almost harmful, if not extremely harmful to their bodies. Someone got like
Wow.
suspended by their arms, hanging like 6 feet above, and he like started, this sounds really gross, but I promise it had something to do with like the story, but he started like peeing down his leg intention, like this is a part of the story. And there was this part where this girl was holding on to these ropes, and they were also tied to her feet, and people were pulling on them like as if she was flying, like if she was a flyer, and they were pulling on them, and they like launched her forward into this like X into the sky, and there was a camera
Whoa.
from up top. This was the one where I was like, I was extremely uncomfortable, but it was like the best piece of theater I've ever seen. There was a camera
Hmm.
on top that like was capturing this, and this camera was very interesting because then later in the show there was this like these two guys just like fighting, but they were really just like coming
Uh-huh.
together, grabbing each other, and then flying apart. So, and doing it in the same spots, like in
Interesting.
like a sort of circle format around the stage. And
Uh-huh.
you could see the red on their skins. They're like shirtless. You can see the
Uh-huh.
red on their skin,
From
and
like the
like
grabbing.
from the grabbing, and they did it for like I swear to God, 10 minutes of just that
That's
part.
intense.
Yeah, and it was like, I'm remembering this imagery from the show that's like amazing. Not a sound, not a word was said in this show. Not a singular word. 2.5 hours of
Wow.
like different like tension, like uncomfortable, like spooky like moments. Crazy.
Hey y'all, I just wanted to jump in here and quickly say that there were words, but everything was in Russian, and the show was called Betrofen Heights. So I just wanted to jump in and say that. I also wanted to say that I am aware that a trumpet is a brass instrument and not a woodwind. Anyways, carry on.
Crazy, but like so intense and cool. And our whole school went to see it. So it was just like, or not our whole school, our original works program went to see it. I was like, thank God I'm in original works, because this thing is nuts.
Yeah.
Like,
that really took my breath away. That sounds so original and abstract. But
yeah.
I mean, I think to our point that we're talking about, I think audience are so ready and willing to participate in something that is abstract and isn't so literal and explained out for you. Like they're game, and they will follow along no matter what, because they want to know a story.
If they aren't game, they'll leave. It's not their style. You know, like people who don't want to be there will leave. And like people leave at intermission. That's a thing people do. And that's fine sometimes, you know?
That's fine. That's when I think you're doing your job.
Yeah. You like make someone uncomfortable.
You can't please anyone.
This is totally true. People always find something to not like about a certain situation or something like that. It's wild. And so talking about making this like change into bringing people into the theater space, like what's your show that people should know? Like what should people know more about?
Shows to know. So yeah, talking about abstracting and sort of magical realism, I think there's not one show, but there's a lot of authors I think people need to know. I had a really hard time picking just like a show. But I think one that would be a good precursor or like first stepping stone is actually, there's two. The first is Susan Glaspell as an author. She has plays, you may have encountered like Trifles in like a theater history class, which is a short play, but she has other plays like The Verge and The Inheritors. And she was a writer in the 1920s, coming up with like the Provincetown Players. And she really set the stage for Eugene O'Neill and his style of expressionism to take over. And she's really lost a lot of credit over the past years of being sort of the mother of American expressionism that gave way to Eugene O'Neill and Tennessee Williams. And then that whole line from then on. So she's the first one. And then my second one is Fefu and Her Friends by Maria Irina Fornes, which I don't think people, they don't know her enough.
They don't. It's like, isn't that considered like a classic? Is it?
Yeah, because it's an older play. I forget the year exactly. I want to say it's in like the 50s that it came out, but it's just like this magical realist wonderland of possibility when producing it, because it's like all three of, or like there's the 3 acts and then everyone has individual scenes and they're all happening at the same time.
Right.
And I've seen an immersive production of it. I've seen just a proscenium production of it where they just reordered it. So I think there's so much play within that script. But she really gave way to a lot of like Latinx theater makers to continue magical realism, like Jose Rivera, especially.
Right. Fefu, I think we actually read that in our theater history class. I think that was one of the ones, you know how you don't always read what's in the theater history, you like skim it for the questions. But Fefu, I feel like we read like out loud because our teacher was like, you guys have to read this. Just because there were so many intriguing scenes where you're just kind of like, what is happening? It's sort of
the
like
scene with like the woman in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Just like describing her body.
Seriously, there's so many very interesting. Wasn't that though? Is that the one? Maybe I'm thinking of a different scene where someone is like playing a game with their husband, but they're really just shooting him with a rifle and he's like running in the backyard. Isn't that one of the scenes?
Yeah, there's like that whole thing of like someone gets shot with a rifle and you're like, who is it? And you think it's Fefu, and like that's also not even like the main question of the play in the first place. It's just sort of exterior.
Yeah, they like led into it with like, oh, this is a game we play. Boom, boom. Like we're just gonna shoot. And then does someone actually get shot? I haven't read this in so long.
I'm pretty sure, but we don't see it because there's no men in the
Right.
play.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Such a wild play. That's a good one. Yeah, and then like you said, like Jose Rivera, like bringing in for more Latinx playwrights and stuff like that's awesome.
Yeah, like Marisol, or I'm a huge fan of Massacre by him. But he just handles that like magical realism really well, of just bringing in that extra sense of heightened that just lets us think, I think, a little bit more about these like bigger psychological effects and really experience them.
Totally. I also love magical realism as a concept for theatrical works because it makes it such a playground for like the designers, depending on what type of magical realism you're doing. Because the playwrights, I've in our playwriting classes and stuff at school and just throughout life, it's like you write the thing, you're like, I don't know how you're gonna do it. This is what I'm imagining, but I don't know how you're gonna do it. And that's just like
that's the most exciting.
Yeah. And if you're a control freak, it's hard to be like, go do whatever you want. But if you're not, you're like, this is my idea.
Yeah, and I think that's the potential with theater versus like film, is that if you can really pull off magical realism, I think it works and is so much more powerful live in front of you than in a movie, because then you're just like, that's CGI or that's camera trickery, like it's not very real.
Right.
But sitting there in a theater and you're watching like someone disappear or turn into an almond or bring in a Christmas tree from the hundreds of miles away, you're just sitting there like, how is this happening in front of me? I don't believe where I am.
Turning into an almond.
That's
your brain just goes, how do you do that?
How do you do that? I'm running a play right now with a horse who sings a song and then dies. And I'm like, I don't know how you're going to do that, but I can't wait to figure it out.
Can't wait to see it. It's like, here you go. Here's my little present for you. It's like you have to put in one weird thing that you're like, I don't know how you're going to do it, but this is what it needs. I wrote a play one time that it's still not done. It's called Marcia, pronounced Marcia, about a human Martian on Mars. So she's a human, but she grew up with Martian parents. She doesn't know how to fit in.
Aww.
And it's very cute. And I wrote it in a playwriting class, and it was just the most absurd thing that I feel like I've ever written. And it was the most fun. So I was always like, I don't know what's going to happen. Oh, this weird creature comes up, but he only speaks in a language that we don't know the sound of, and a language that only one person can understand. And it likes to do like an interpretive dance while it's talking.
Of course.
And exactly. And there's one character who breaks all of the walls, who walks into the audience and runs away because he's a fugitive of some sort. We don't really know why, but he's the one you've been trusting this entire time until the end. You don't trust him in the end. And I haven't written the very, very end yet. I have no idea what happens. I have no idea.
Well, I can't wait to find out.
I know, me either. I sit down to try and write it every year and it never works. Some year it will come. I'm very sure that like whenever I have resistance from writing or doing art or doing work or anything, it's for a good reason. Even in like high school when I would procrastinate my essays, like it always turns out the way that I want it to, but I had no idea where to start before. You know, like it's
totally. Yeah, I have a play right now that I'm stuck on like the second to last scene, and I like know sort of how it's gonna end, but like to get there, I don't know. And instead of trying to force it, I just made the decision recently, like I'm just gonna shelve this until like it pops back into my head and it all clicks, because one day it's going to.
For sure.
And we'll just wait for that day to happen.
Waiting. It's like you'll get it at like 2 a.m. and be like,
precisely.
While you're laying in bed and you're like, oh my god,
I have to go
write that
now.
scene. I have to go write that scene. I had one of those last night of like an idea for something, and it's gone now because I didn't write it down. I think it was like some video idea that I don't do TikTok videos, but I was like, this would be a great TikTok video.
The amount of like sticky notes and iPhone notes that I have just scattered everywhere of just like different ideas of inspiration.
I'm also a write the note somewhere and then lose it type of person.
Totally.
The only thing I've ever had to keep track of is the questions for this podcast. And it is, for anyone watching, this is how professional I am. If you're listening, you have no idea. I leave it in the same place and I only use it for this. So I'm always just like, I know
That's
where it
perfect.
is. Do you have any shows that are happening right now that you want to promote to the people?
Yeah. So like I said, I'm working on Sound of Music in those early stages of pre-production. That's going to be opening in Hella, Montana, believe July 24th at Grand Street Theater. Um, and then that's all I'm working on because pandemic.
Yeah.
I'm also a part of this nonprofit organization called Ghostlight Audition Group. And what we aim to do is to assist especially BIPOC and LGBTQ plus students in high school who are interested in pursuing a theater career, just sort of helping them out with that audition process and figuring out where to begin and what sort of programs are out there and what are you looking for. Just trying to like demystify and make as accessible as we can the whole theater collegiate experience.
Yeah. That's a big job, and I'm so happy that that's something you're pursuing.
Yeah, it's a big task, and we're also still in early stages, but we have a website, ghostlightauditiongroup.com, link below, like and subscribe.
All
And
of
then I
those
do
things?
just want to, yes, all the good social things.
Yes.
And then I do want to just give a shout out to an Austin, Texas collective called Frank Woman Collective. That's FRANKWO/MEN. They are like a Dadaist movement dance theater collective, and they just put out a whole digital show called Kiddo that really I think is a huge game changer for theatrical digital storytelling. So I just want to give them a big shout out.
Big shout out. I can even link them below so you can check that out. I might have to look at that. That sounds like even the title just kind of evokes an emotion. I feel like for everyone, it's like, oh, that word. Okay, cool.
Yeah, they had Kiddo was incredible. Of like they had like 5 different rooms that you could jump between at will, and everyone was sort of doing a thing, and you could interact. Like he flashed his cell phone number up on the screen and said, "Call me." And so we called him and like talked to him during the show, and it was just so like wild and fun and interesting. It gave me like such a heart rush that it felt like theater for a second. Right. I was
it's like
wow.
how do we make theater feel real when you're just in your home? Like that's a hard thing too. That's why I never really got into the Zoom theater of it all. So it's just like that doesn't sound quite like fun to me. I did a Zoom like fundraiser for the children's theater that I work with in Seattle. And that was fun. I got to do a little improv as a certain character, read a monologue.
Hey.
Did a little bit of thing, raised some money for Dandelion, and it was super fun. But yeah, I think that was the only Zoom like theater-esque thing, but that Kiddo sounds really cool.
It was really, really interesting and super innovative too.
That's so cool. And so you said do you have any other little self promos that you want to do, like your Insta, your website, anything like that?
Yeah, my website is www.traceturner.com. My Instagram is Trace M Turner. That's TRACEMTURNER.
Those links will be below as well.
Yeah, and then could I actually also like drop some of the playwright names that I came up with for shows you gotta know?
Yes.
Cool. So here's everybody's reading list and homework for the weekend. Plays by Anna Ziegler, Nick Payne, Taylor Mack, Richard Greenberg, Sam Shepard, Will Arbery, Jeremy O'Harris, and then like Jose Rivera, Maria Irina Fornes, and Susan Glaspell.
Yes, that's a good reading list. Yeah, that's super. Maria Irene Fornes' work is very wild. I did a piece. Wild. I did a piece in my acting class senior year. It was like one of the most intense pieces of theater that I ever done. And it was wild because we were doing like Fornés Ionesco and someone else is like a triplet in the
That's awesome.
in the semester. Wild times.
I'm such an Ionesco fan too.
Yeah. So my little last sneaky question for you is, who would you like to see on this podcast?
Oh, that's a very good question. There was this actress I worked with at American Players Theater. Her name is Melissa Pereira, and she is part of the core company of the actors at American Players. And she is a Latinx director and actor. She is very knowledgeable. I respect her so much. And I would hope that she could be on this podcast someday.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. I might ask you for some contact info if you have it.
Sure.
Definitely. Awesome. Anything else before we say goodbye for today?
I think that's it. Please get vaccinated. Keep wearing masks.
Yeah, vaccinate yourself for you. Wear masks for other people. These are all amazing things. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you if you're on YouTube or Spotify or Apple, wherever you are. Thank you so much. Please give us a little like, maybe subscribe, follow, do whatever the thing is that on the platform that you are on. Let me know who you'd like to see on the podcast. Thank you so much, Trace, for joining me today. I am so excited.
Thank you so much.
And I hope everyone has a great week. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.